I think you have discussed everything already. There's nothing really to say.
Se aude? Da, doamnelor și domnilor, apreciem prezența celor 8 persoane în sală. În pofida acestui.
We very much appreciate the presence of 8 persons in the room. We have a panel here of professional, of experts. We will speak today about the potential of wind energy in the Black Sea coast, on the Black Sea, on offshore. So we will speak about offshore wind energy as a potential solution in terms of strengthening the energy transition, especially having regard to all the crises going on, and I mean here the Ukraine war, Iran war, security crisis at collective level, and also we can also speak about crisis at NATO level, economic crisis at the level of the European Union, all of them impacting the energy. So we will look at offshore wind energy as a potential solution to cope with all these conditions. I would like to ask participants in this panel to try to explain to us how they see the role of wind energy in the Black Sea region as a factor to increase resilience. How they see a potential framework for cooperation of neighboring countries to develop such projects. How can offshore energy contribute to the reconstruction of Ukraine, and also having regard to the Danube corridor? How can offshore wind energy and attached to it the hydrogen production contribute to strengthening energy resilience at the level of, in Central Europe? I will start with Mr. Lorant, ANTAL, President of Industry, Commerce and Service Commission in the Romanian Parliament. I would like to apologize on his behalf because at some point he will have to leave as he has a very urgent meeting. Hello everybody, and thank you for the invitation. I'm glad I have the opportunity to participate again in this series of events under the umbrella of the Security Forum. I would like to speak a little bit about hydrogen. You have mentioned the possibility of to produce hydrogen if we manage to make to have these wind energy farms operational. We have to be very realistic today. In order to be able to be realistic, or to realize that we have just that we woke up from a dream and we had to become realistic, we have to go a little bit back in time, to the point in time where discussions started about the so-called Green Deal. and the first measures, regulations, directives started to emerge. That was the point in time where a hydrogen revolution also started, if you remember. And those pioneers in the field were saying that in 5, 6, 7 years, all Europe, except the fact that we will all only consume green energy, all over the place, all over, we will also consume hydrogen. In favor of these pioneers, there were lots of experts who tried to convince us that hydrogen is actually new black, the new wave meant to save Europe from an energetic point of view. And the whole European Commission started to develop program strategies meant to deal with this European concern with hydrogen production. What we also have to clarify to say that long before the hydrogen revolution, as mentioned, in Romania, in the petrochemical industry, Romania used to produce hydrogen for industrial use. And of course, hydrogen is or was and has been a very important element for the industry. After this hydrogen revolution has passed by, there are several voices in the European Union who realized that those pioneers in terms of hydrogen were not right. And instead, it is more important to focus on the importance of hydrogen in the industrial area rather than focus on hydrogen in other terms for other uses. So this is what we can say today. There is a sort of awakening from this point of view, and they realize that hydrogen should be used rather for projects that are meant for industrial use. I don't want to go into any details concerning costs, if it is produced with green energy, and so on and so forth. But I am now going into the second part of the problem you raised. If Romania has the potential to produce wind energy, and how we deal with this Romanian potential. From a legislative point of view, I would like to say that Romania, after its accession to the European Union, it automatically undertook some responsibilities concerning energy transition. We closed 6,000 megawatt energy production capabilities based on coal. We have not replaced it with anything. But at the same time, at legislative level, we came up with two pieces of legislation. The hydrogen legislation, which entered into force in 2023. So if in Romania they really want to do something with hydrogen or in favor of hydrogen production, again, more for industrial use, if yes, we have the legal framework valid or in force starting 2023. And the second piece of legislation is the offshore wind legislation or law. I was a co-initiator of this act, of this piece of legislation. So Romania has the hydrogen law and the offshore wind legislation. So if there are investors who want to invest in the Black Sea region, they can come and do it because we do have the legal framework. I don't want to speak too much here. now in 2026, lots of forecasts or perspectives presented 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago in the European Union. So most of those forecasts or perspectives have not come true, have not been employed. And in terms of hydrogen, there have been mature hydrogen projects which, however, were not put into practice. However, there are projects that will be funded by the European Union, but by far we are not there as the European Union forecasted 10 years ago, so to say, let's say. So the energy field is very important. We need solutions to produce cheaper energy. Without cheaper energy or without a competitive price, we will have to close down industries. And I have mentioned this example, BASF, this milestone of petrochemical industry. This company had to close production because of energy price. And this is an example I have given in many conferences. So we have to find a way and to rethink our energy strategies. Thank you. Thank you so much. I will now switch into English.
Remarks. Indeed, there is a legal framework in place concerning the development of offshore wind. There is a legal framework in place for the development of hydrogen projects, but still we do not see long queues of investors approaching these type of projects. Now, probably people will wait for because let's admit it, the Black Sea area is a geopolitical tense area. We have the Russian fleet sailing around, including in our exclusive economic zone. We have mines, we have water drones, so it's a pretty tense geopolitical area. A2AD. I will not go into further details, but probably people will wait for the Neptune Deep project to kickstart, and if everything runs smoothly, hopefully investors in the offshore wind sector will also come. I will now give the floor to Mr. Christian Egenhofer, who is a senior fellow of the Florence School of Transnational Governance in Florence and the European University Institute in Germany. He's also a very close friend of Romania and collaborator of the Energy Policy Group, which is a Romanian prime energy think tank. Christian, as you listen to the senator, there is a legal framework in place in Romania. We are ready to promote investments in the Black Sea offshore wind sector, but still I have the feeling that something is missing. What can you please share with us from the success of offshore wind projects that have been developed in the Northern Sea, in the Baltic area? What do you think is missing here? What can we do to stimulate investments? Please.
Thank you. You know, the success story of the North Sea may look a little bit different in a few years' time, but what we are really missing is demand. We're missing demand for electricity, for low carbon, and all the rest of it. But let me just sort of also replicate what the senator said. We need to be realistic, and many of the numbers on hydrogen, actually most of them, have not been realistic. There were lots of studies saying it won't work, the prices are not okay, and the German auctions for green hydrogen revealed an equivalent of a carbon price of 1,000. How can you have demand there? So, Senator, if I may just provoke you a bit, where have you been in when these discussions were? Where have the Romanians been saying, hey, look, the numbers don't add up? And I think everybody was jumping and saying, yeah, look, the hydrogen is the new gas. No, it's not. It's not. But let me maybe also add on, the Green Deal is, of course, as not the solution to Europe's issues, economic issues, but it's also not the problem, or certainly not the only problem. Read the Draghi report. It tells you it's really macroeconomic, and we're not doing there well. Now, of course, offshore wind is a key source for Europe. Certainly North Sea is the hub, and to replace the nuclear is partly closed, that the North Sea offshore will be an important part. There is significant potential in Romania. The World Bank speaks of 7 gigawatt capacity. I don't know whether this is true, but 4 to 5, according our analysis of the energy policy group, with a good load factor of 40%. That's reasonable. If you go down to 30% load factor, the economics fall flat. They have even more in the better potential in Bulgaria. Build a cable. How likely is that? But that would be a good solution to bring energy prices down. Whether this is politically feasible, I don't know. Now, 4 to 5 gigawatt, the peak load of Romania currently is 9 to 9.5 gigawatt. It may go up to 10.5, let's hope. Now, if you then look at, you have offshore wind, nuclear, solar, hydro, and gas as a transition, you're okay. It's quite good, and also the prices should be reasonable, especially if you interconnect better with the rest. Now, what does it leave with hydrogen? If you look at where would the demand for hydrogen be? You mentioned industry. Now, if you look what happens in steel would be the first one. Steel, and you would think about chemicals, the feedstock. In the chemicals industry, half of the emissions are from the feedstock, and that could be electrified via hydrogen route. But if you look at steel, what's happening currently in Central and Eastern Europe, the heavy energy-intensive stuff, the primary energy production, sponge iron, the green electrified steel is farmed out to Australia, Canada, and places where there is lower energy prices. The rest of the value chain can be maintained, but that is probably a very rational solution by industry, but it does not really kill the industry. But if you're trying to produce domestically with high energy prices, Europe is energy short. It will always be energy short, and we will have high prices compared to Australia, Canada, you name it. Now, the first Alpine ThyssenKrupp have gone this route, and I think others will go there. There will be some European steel, primary steel, for being part of the global supply chains, but a big part will go out. Chemicals, again, if you electrify chemicals, it costs money. Probably, to some extent, it will happen, but we will have to see. Now, if you invest in energy-intensive industries, if you look at the European landscape, the highest cost region is Northwest Europe, and Italy. That's probably not going to attract a lot of new investment. When you go there, you see Spain has low energy prices, 40, 45, 50. So the question is, why is that not replicated in this region? Again, a question to you. It's a long term. We have low energy prices in the Nordics, 50 euro per megawatt hour. With 50 euros per megawatt hour, you're reasonably competitive, and there is really no question the investment will go there. So the question will be, how can you come down there? So will there be demand for hydrogen? Some for steel, but Nordics, Iberian, chemicals, yes, industrial heat. You can electrify a lot, and keep in mind, if you go down the hydrogen route, you lose between 25 and 45% of your efficiency gain. So everything that can be electrified will be electrified. That's very clear, and that's the most efficient way of doing it, like it or not. I don't think it's probably, you know, good news, or I mean, maybe the gas people will not like it, but there will be electrification, and that's the most economic way. And I'll just give you one example, if you allow me. 15 years ago, Volvo buses have looked at what's the most efficient way, and they said we invest only in electrified buses, because the efficiency gains are so high. That makes sense in the longer term. Now, maybe on a positive note, let me finish, maybe if this was my job, you know, finish on a positive note, and a somewhat positive note in these very difficult times. And that's really, when you look at defense, this is about security. If you look at defense, we know that in the next 50, 60, perhaps up to 80 years, we need a lot of liquid fuels for our aircraft, for our tanks, for our battleships. At the moment, we're using petrol, I mean diesel and petrol, I mean liquid, yeah, crude. We are electrifying transport, and I'm convinced this is going to happen rather quicker than we think. So we would need to keep about 50 refineries in Europe just to keep the liquid fuel in case of war, or to be a deterrent. You know, if we are not seriously as a deterrent, you will be eaten up. So where do we can we keep 50 refineries in Europe? Probably not. So what's the way? The other way would be eSAF, you know, sustainable aviation fuel, producing via hydrogen. This needs a massive amount of electricity. So costs, inefficiencies, which I mentioned, won't matter, because defense security is a matter of life and death. And so we will spend whatever will be needed. Not good for the younger generation because of pension and the rest of it, but it will be spent. So that's probably the biggest, you know, opportunity, if you want to put it that way. It's not so much opportunity, partly it's a threat. But there, I don't see any other solution. Happy to, if somebody else had a better solution than the one I was trying to sketch. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Much appreciated. You give us hopes. I will now turn to the true market players that we have in our panel, two I would like to call national champions. And let us have their feeling about the potential of offshore wind, how they see the impact of this resource on the market, on the consumer. Is it realistic to rely on such kind of investments? What would be the outcome? Mr. Ondrej, SAFAR, the country manager of Evryo Group, former ČEZ in Romania. Please.
Good morning. Thanks for invitation. Before I will go to the discussions on energy sector and the potential, there is one thing which I really feel the need to say is the most critical thing for Romania is fixing the public finances, because if you are talking for any investments in Romania, every single foreign investor, every bank which is potentially financing investment in Romania is always comparing return and the investments on the project versus the least risky investment in Romania, and this is borrowing to the Romanian government. And in the moment Romanian government is borrowing on 7%, every single investment should bring higher returns than the 7%. And this is making Romania very expensive. It is making any investments, including the energy sector, less competitive to any other countries, and this is the most critical thing which Romania needs to fix, and this is the cost of the state debt. Otherwise, we will never be competitive with the other countries, because this is one thing which every investment needs to carry in its valuation is this big gap. So this is let's say before we go to any sector, before we talk about Black Sea. Then when I talk about the Black Sea wind and the potential of the Black Sea, there is definitely potential. But one thing which, and when we were looking at it, always was comparison between offshore and onshore wind. What is the, let's see, what is the high incremental increase of the wind potential offshore versus what you have in Dobroja onshore, whether this is really justifying the higher investments. And then the other thing is whether it is bringing you some easier permitting, let's say access to land and so on. And advantage and disadvantage in the same time of Romania. Advantage for Romania is that it's relatively easy to really permit onshore production compared to other European countries. Because it's like on the EU level, there are a lot of discussions about issues with permitting. Romania is one of the countries where this is relatively quick permitting process. It has its issues, but compared to France, compared to other countries, it's significant. Germany, it's significantly better. So you have as well, you have the public perception of the renewables is positive. Again, compared to other countries, try to build any renewables in Czech Republic, and you will see it's nightmare because of the public perception. In Romania, you have really population is positive. You have people which are really willing to offer you the lands, their own lands for the rental, for the development. So this is something which is positive. But then, if you have to choose between onshore or offshore, then you need to really think whether it's really worth to go to the higher costs technology. And then you compare it that you will anyway end up in Dobroja with your power, so which is very congested area, and so you need to evacuate the power from there. So you have the same bottleneck with the higher investment cost. So this is something which, as an investor, you will always look at it, and you will compare those two things. And what is the key for the development of the offshore in other regions of Europe? It's those projects are like one of the key things for the investor. They are de-risked from the perspective of connection, from the perspective of geological studies and so on. So let's say you are coming to the project, which all those, let's say, risks are addressed by the authorities in the country. So it's far more, let's say, attractive for the investors, because every risk means additional costs every year, every risk as well. It's, let's say, attracting different type of investors. So I think like Romania, if I look at the offshore wind, it's more for the, let's say, higher risk takers type of investments or investors. It's more like for the developers in this moment rather than for the real investors of either utility or financial investors in this moment. So if we want to really use the potential, we need to look at it. We need to de-risk the investments. We need to make it in the way that it's like really straightforward for the investors, financial investors, industry investors to really make these things happen. Which means to bring the connection to the border of the perimeters, make the geo studies on the perimeters, give it in disposal, put the auctions in place, but make it easy, make it easy and make it really as a competition on financial costs, competition on technology, but not the competition on who is willing to take a higher risk or who is, let's say, pricing the risk bit cheaper. So that would be one part of it. The other part of it, okay, what to do with the energy, because we have the wind in Dobroja and the wind in Black Sea. Okay, there might be the difference of half an hour, maybe 1 hour in the, let's say, the wind till the wind reach the shore. So you are producing exactly, so you are facing the same cannibalization with the same production. So for that you need to look at the batteries, but you need to look potentially, you need to look on hydrogen as one of the option. But I think hydrogen now is in the same phase as renewables were 20 years ago, where you couldn't make it without subsidy. So it's not economical on its own, and then it's really strategic decision for EU, for Romania, whether as it was decision back 20 years ago, to bet on renewables, to allocate large amount of public money, either to European funds or the national funds, to really support the technology. And I was, back in 2008, I was responsible for the wind farm in Romania. It was not feasible without massive subsidies. So we were getting, or we were doing valuation, getting its different, we did evaluation with 110 euro per megawatt subsidy, and that made it economical. If it would be on the energy price, it would not be feasible. It would never happen. And in the moment when we were finalizing back in 2012, that was the moment where globally there were first projects, renewable wind projects, which were economical without any subsidies, but that was after really globally huge amount of money of subsidies was going to the industry, and it helped the development. So that's where the hydrogen, I believe, is now, and we have no, still it's bet on technology. There is no guarantee that we can reach the point that it's going to be break even on the with the development. It might never be competitive. But what we as well see with the deployment of renewables, and we can see it year by year, the spread between the price of energy day versus evening, it's increasing every year. Summer versus winter as well, the spread of the energy is developing significantly year by year as the renewables are more and more deployed. And that's something which needs to be addressed. It can be addressed by classical power plant up to a certain level. It can be addressed by hydro, by pumping stations and so on, but those are not cheap either. So then the question is, which of these technologies has the higher chance to be economical and as well to be accepted by the public? Because part of it is as well public acceptance, because pumping station might be nice technological solution, but we are not living in communism anymore, fortunately, where you could just build a pumping station in the middle of the protected area because you decided so. Now you need to have as well public acceptance of those investments. So although they might be maybe competitive, we might not be able to really build it. And I will stop here. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. SAFAR. Thank you very much. I will now move to Mr. Bogdan Bada, who is the CEO of Hidroelectrica, the national, I would call it the national renewable energy champion, a company that, despite the fact of being owned by the Romanian government, by the Romanian state, has managed to become, in a relatively short period of time, a successful player in the energy market, both on the production side and the retail side. And Hidroelectrica is also starting to get involved. Projects are actually undergoing in other types of renewable energy other than hydro. And I would like Mr. Bada also to have your view on the offshore wind potential, how you see its impact on the energy market. Please.
Good morning, and thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here and to discuss such a hot topic because, as you know, Hidroelectrica being a green electricity producer, of course, we are looking also to the investments in offshore wind. We expressed in the past the intention to involve in such projects, but on the other hand, we have so many unpleasant experiences with public policies and unpredictability from the political dissidents. Despite the fact that from the technical point of view, from the strategy of the company point of view, it could be a very interesting investment, what we need is a clear view from the government and a clear way in which the government will support such investments. And of course, you already speak into the panel about the risks that we have now to invest in offshore wind in Black Sea, having the Ukrainian war nearby. But let's imagine a scenario in which this war will end. So it will be peace in the area, and part of the risk that any investor had in such an investment will disappear. On the other hand, what we learned from the past is that at least in the last moment, Romania should understand that it isn't necessary to reinvent the wheel. We have clear policies in other countries to support such investments. We just have to analyze what other countries in the European Union did, what kind of policies generate results. And we can look to Germany, we can look to the Nordic countries, which have a lot of capacities in such a technology. So we just have to replicate into the Romanian legislation what is happening there. And in this way, offering predictability to the investors to start to encourage the investors to come and invest in the Black Sea. Of course, we have a lot of resources, but we have a big talent in blocking our resources. So somehow we are living in two parallel universes. You know, the political and politicians, and this is what is happening with the Green Deal, and the technical part. So we assume policies that has nothing to do with the technical reality. And unfortunately, we saw at the European level with the Green Deal, what are the results? We encourage solar, we encourage wind. It is a very good thing. I always express my opinion that the technologies are not necessary in a competition. Somehow they should be complementary. But on the other hand, we do not touch the ground, you know, with the technical realities, because if you have more unpredictable energy, you need more capacities to balance it. You have to change the way in which the balancing market will function. You have to have in mind that a lot of baseload technologies phase out, like the coal. And the pace in which we decommission, at least in Romania, baseload didn't keep the same pace with the new installments in the same technologies. Can we imagine an energy sector without baseload capacity, only with solar? Because there are some voices into the, not necessarily technical voices, that we can live only with solar. I don't think so. Can we live only with wind? No, I don't think so. So we need to rethink from the technical perspective the technologies. And here I think it is the biggest advantage that Hidroelectrica has. Because balancing, you can do it with hydro, you can do it with gas. So it is, those two technologies remain reliable. With batteries, okay, you can play a couple of hours, but when the sun is not shining, you do not have anything into the batteries. And this is what is happening those days in Romania. Okay, they could be reliable, but they are not reliable during the winter. They are not reliable long term. So we have to think, okay, they are good for fine tuning. They are good for leveling the prices between the middle of the day and the evening. They are not good for balancing the market in any condition and ensuring the security of supply. Because I think we should think in the reverse way. What is the most important thing into the energy sector? The security of supply. So this is the first layer. The second layer is what are the best technologies and what are the cleanest technology in which you can ensure the security of supply. So in my opinion, with the combination on offshore wind, with solar and hydro, and ensuring the base load with nuclear, which is not considered a green technology, but it is a clean technology. And at the end, in the last moment, also Europe realized that you cannot close everything and rely on the Russian gas as it was initially, because we promote Chinese technologies balanced with the Russian gas. This was the policy of Europe. This was the Green Deal. Maybe it's too harsh, but this was the reality. And now we are encouraging again the Chinese technologies. We are using electric cars, and the most competitive are from China. We are using batteries, and the most competitive are from China. And we use solar panels, which come from China. And this is the solution for ensuring the security of supply in Europe today. We are blocking hydro investments, which is the cleanest way to balance and to support and to encourage new installments in offshore wind and solar. And we are, and in the same time, we are looking to a very competitive price. If we are looking to all the technologies in Europe and all the investments in Europe, in gas, in hydro, in wind, everything get more and more expensive. If they get more and more expensive, you cannot have a lower price of electricity, because at least when you invest, somebody should support the cost and the results, the efficiency and the final result, the IRR should be positive and should cover high inflation, which is more and more challenging, a double-digit inflation in Romania. So something is missing. And what is missing is the real dialogue between the politicians, which make the policies, and the technical part of the energy sector. I think the solution should come from the companies, from the experts in the energy sector, and the politicians, if they cannot help, at least let us give the best solution. We understand where we want to go, but I think, on the other hand, we should be more pragmatic and more realistic. We cannot drive public policies only by populism and without touching the ground, because this is what is happening at the European level, this is what is happening in Romania. And Romania, you know, having a lot of resources, and you already mentioned that we have a green country with a lot of national parks, where we have resources, not just energy resources, but also mineral resources. For sure, we have a very important national park there, which prevent us to use those resources in the advantages of Romania, in the advantage of Europe, okay? Coming back to offshore wind, yes, it could be a solution, yes, we are interested in invest in this kind of solutions, but on the other hand, we have to look this investment from a technical perspective. If we are looking to Dobroja, we have 2 nuclear reactors, we have a lot of wind parks installed there, we already have a problem with the transmission capacity. We intend to commission 2 nuclear reactors in, I don't know, let's say 5 years to 10 years from now. And we want to install additional capacities into the Black Sea. This means that we need to have a clear view how we evacuate the energy from Dobroja, starting from now, building substations from now, and not moving all the financial burden to the investors as it happens now. This is a very clear thing that we have to do. If we put all the investments risk on the shoulders of the investors, if we put all the investments in the transmission, in substation, on the shoulders of the investors. Even if the technology now on offshoring is mature enough and more efficient, but the costs with the transmission and with strengthening the lines, it is huge and could turn an investment from not from feasibility, feasible, economical feasible, to not feasible. Of course, above that, we have to think a CFD mechanism. And unfortunately, Romania preferred to give CFD mechanism to very competitive technology. They do not need CFD mechanism. In my opinion, if we are putting an additional tax, which at the end of the day will be paid by the consumer, we should do to support technologies that are indispensable from the security of supply perspective, not for technologies that are already proven as feasible from the economical perspective. So there are a couple of examples. We can speak more, but I don't want to monopolize the discussion. Thank you very much. If you have any answers,
Thank you very much,
I will
Mr.
answer with
Bada.
pleasure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bada, and thank you for keeping the flag raised. We've heard these messages many times before. Hopefully the politicians will also, except for the ones present, the politicians
All the time,
will also hear them. You mentioned some you mentioned two key words.
You should mention it because it's important just for better understanding.
You mentioned two key words, Mr. Bada, balancing and storage. And from this perspective, I think that Europe is in a pretty difficult context. When we look at storage, as you correctly pointed out, the entire supply chain on storage is controlled by the Chinese economy. At the same time, we have entered the era of drill, baby, drill, because until recently, most of the financing that came to the energy sector, large projects, I mean, was mostly coming from private equity and financial institutions that had some American origin. Well, this might not be the case anymore. At the same time, as Christian pointed out, even on the defense sector, the impact of energy in the defense sector has changed dramatically. If we look at the battlefield, Christian, today, it is changing every day. I mean, you mentioned refineries which have to produce the fuel for tanks and aircraft. Well, slowly this is changing. We speak today about drones which run on batteries. We speak about the soldier, universal soldier of the 22nd century, which is an android robot running on batteries. So how I'm addressing this question to all the panelists. How do you see Europe, which is squeezed between these two global tendencies, supply chain controlled by China on the power sector and the other hegemon, which is the United States, who is pushing for conventional energy resources? How do you see Europe addressing, from a strategic perspective, addressing these challenges?
Actually, before answering to the question, I'd like to make a remark related to the pricing of electricity in the European level. I think that this is the main issue why in the past 10 years, European Union lose the battle with anybody else from other parts of the world. And okay, you remember the marginal price system, which was actually a pricing form which through actually European Union subsidized the renewables. And when the Russian aggression came on Ukraine, the European Union promised that they're gonna change this pricing system and they're gonna come out with, I don't know, another system. And at the answer for this marginal price system, it was the CFD actually. So CFD somehow is the same system, how was the marginal price pricing system. At the end of the day, if we all the time want to subsidize the production of the electricity, again, we're gonna lose our industries and we're gonna have all the time the expensiest electricity on the whole world level.
Thank you, Senator. Christian?
Yeah, on the marginal cost pricing, it's projected, is this sort of a conspiracy of the European Commission. Marginal pricing is how markets work. And it's very specific. So, been discussing this for more than 15 years. And yes, it has its issues, but so far nobody has given me a model that could work better to get the full cost of the system into this. But let me just add on, you know, Laurențiu, on the warfare, the drones in Ukraine is in a way partly, it's part of it, but it's also an anomaly because there is no aircraft in Ukraine. The moment NATO strategy is very different. So, you know, don't extrapolate from the Ukraine, Russia, from the Russian situation to Europe. Just one thing to maybe to the, I mean, I agree we need to be more realistic, but what the discussion in Europe is we are adding on batteries, we're adding on grids, distribution, transmission, we're adding on flexibility sources. All this costs a lot of money. And what I really was missing here is where is the demand response? The non-wire solution, we have a lot of potential there which costs very little. It's IT, maybe Chinese, maybe not. But without the demand response, we're just adding on extra layers of costs which will be reflected in the price of electricity in the end.
Yeah, I think so. First reaction is that, let's say, us as Europe, we were benefiting from the global markets, even in the period where, let's say, the other regions were already preparing for the next phase, and we were just naively sitting in the, let's say, benefiting from cheapest prices sourcing globally. And so we need to catch up. We need to realize that the global world doesn't exist anymore, and we need to really look on the independency, local sourcing. But it costs money, and that's something which it's very difficult to say it clearly, publicly, that yeah, we can be independent, but it has its price, and this requires a lot of political courage. So that's honestly, I don't think that we have it in this moment. So this is one thing, and the other thing is I would really underline what Bogdan said. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can go. Why don't we really go and look at what worked in Spain? Maybe what we don't like in Spain, what we see it was not right. What works in Scandinavia? One of the things which is clear, they reach the level of their prices by doing the right things, by massively investing over the years. I was in Finland last month. Their transmission operator was telling us we 5 times increased investments in transmission grid compared to 10 years ago. I don't think that this is happening in Romania. I don't think this is happening in Bulgaria. I don't think this is happening in any other country in Balkan. Increasing the investments to be able to move that energy where we can produce it efficient, to move it where we need to consume it. We need to build those highways for the energy. Without that, we will never make it happen.
Thank you.
One small remark, if you allow me. So the conclusion from the storage perspective is that the battery cannot replace hydro. It could help on short term, they are useless on long term. Hidroelectrica has a 3 terawatt-hour battery in our lakes. Of course, depending on the year, we can have 2.5, we can have 3 if we have a good year. In the worst case scenario, 1.8, 1.9 terawatt-hour. So we have this battery which we have to use all over the year. And unfortunately, when we have a rainy year which help us, the batteries and the solar is useless. And if you stay exposed to the weather and rely on the fact that maybe it won't happen such a year, it is a big mistake. So therefore, in my opinion, we have to balance the technologies and to encourage pump storage power plants, which is a more reliable solution, of course, more expensive, and we need some support schemes in order to ensure the feasibility of the project. And we need to build more hydropower plants with big reservoirs behind it. This is the only reliable solution for storage and for balancing, and also the cleanest, because we don't have time now, but we can also look to the carbon footprint of the batteries, which is not so green if we are looking to the components. Comparing with hydro, which means water, means infrastructure, means also developing some areas also from the touristic perspective, and we have a lot of examples. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you. This was an excellent panel. Thank you for your participation, and thank you to the attendees. I don't know, I think we're totally out of time, but I have to conclude. Thank you.